levels of government and multiple branches within each level to stop any one branch who began to play the tyrant. But this is the tyrant, and this is how the tyrant acts. This is how a tyrant thinks. This is how a tyrant behaves. The Supreme Court has declared ultimate authority and has demanded unlimited submission, like all tyrants before them. And this, of course, stands in complete contradiction to what the founders established. Jefferson, Hamilton, even Madison, the father of the Constitution, all said that the judiciary was to be the weakest and the most helpless. It's all been turned on the head, where all the other branches now bow down to them. The judiciary merely interprets the law. It does not write law from the bench. Any human institution that accrues power to itself so that it arrogantly declares itself the final arbiter to which all men must submit will corrupt itself. The tyrant has not only established itself on a mountain of lies, but it's arrogant. Former Supreme Court Justice Charles Evans Hughes said, quote, "We are under a constitution, but the Constitution is whatever the Supreme Court says it is." That's arrogance. Harlan Stone, another former Supreme Court justice, said, "The only check upon our own exercise of power is our own self-restraint." Our own self-restraint. That's how arrogant they are. They know all the other branches will bow to them. Judge Richard Posner, appointed by Reagan not too long ago, said this: "It's funny to talk about the oath of judges, the oath judges take to uphold the Constitution, since the Supreme Court has transformed the Constitution and its decisions. The oath is not really to the original Constitution or the Constitution as amended. It is to some body of law created by the Supreme Court. You can forget about the oath. That is not of significance." In good tyrant fashion, the federal judiciary thinks it's above the law. And when that happens, the tyrant acts lawlessly. He reshapes the very founding document of the nation for its own designs. So the tyrant has built its power through lies, and it is drunk on its own arrogance and hubris. And the tyrant also is evil. They can decree whatever they want, and all the people and all the other branches of government bow down, lick their hand, and submit. They can decree anything, no matter how evil. And all the people obey, and all the branches submit any evil thing. Slavery and the dehumanization of black men, homosex not a crime, homosex marriage imposed, boys and girls shower rooms. Their hubris is so great that they've even touched the Imago Dei, those made in the image of God, and said you can murder them. You can murder the innocent preborn. Yesterday, our nation remembered the injustice towards black men, but isn't it funny how each succeeding generation likes to think themselves so much holier than the past ones, while they dismiss the sins of their own generation. And we have forgotten the preborn in our day, and are suffering a great injustice, and do nothing. Why are we here at this building? Why aren't we in Washington, D.C. for the 46th year in a row? Because the Supreme Court is the tyrant. That's why. And we're not going to go out with our hat in a hand and beg them for scraps for their table. We're here because these men at this building have a duty to interpose and bring an end to this bloodshed in our nation. That's why we're here at this State House. We're not going to play the game that the pro-life and pro-family movements have been playing for decades, where they get rich off the bloody backs of the murdered preborn. Amen. Saying we must obey the Supreme Court, promulgating the lie of the tyrant, while they say they love the preborn. That should bother you. And it must be denounced, it must be addressed, and that's what we're doing here today. denouncing and addressing the tyrant. The slaughter and injustice against the preborn is gross. It is a gross evil, and it's grievous, and their innocent blood cries from the very ground we're standing on. And the tyrant, the Supreme Court and the federal judiciary, has decreed this evil and protected this evil for 46 years. And we're all wondering, where are the lesser magistrates? Tyranny is nothing new, brothers and sisters. It raises its ugly head in the annals of man time and time again. Even tyranny by judges is nothing new. The prophet Zephaniah spoke of the judges. He said in chapter 3, verse 3 of Zephaniah, "Her judges are evening wolves who leave not a bone for the morning." Do you know what an evening wolf is? It's the worst kind. It's the wolves who didn't get anything to eat all day, and they're ferocious. They're the meanest. They're the hungriest. And that's what our judges in America are. They are evening wolves. They are the wild dog, the wild beast. They are the bear wolf that has been unleashed in this nation. While the pulpit sits silent, and it sickens me to watch. All the land groans for the interposition of the lesser magistrates. And yet, just like the Lord spoke in Ezekiel and Isaiah, none were found to interpose. Plato addressed Dionysius, and he said to him, "What harm have you done that you should need so many guards?" Have you noticed how they've strengthened their hand at the fortress called Washington, D.C.? When Plato said that to Dionysius, remember Dionysius was surrounded by his bodyguards, right?
Right.
And this tyrant in our nation has bodyguards also. The federal judiciary is protected by a whole host of bodyguards. And I want to just mention three. The first bodyguard is idolatry. Listen to me now. Understand, any human institution that accrues power to itself so that it arrogantly declares itself the final arbiter to which all men must submit will corrupt itself. Understand also, any human institution that accrues power to itself so that it arrogantly declares itself the final arbiter to which all men must submit has declared itself God. Understand also that any human institution that declares itself the final arbiter to which all men and all other branches of government must submit stands in complete contradiction to the entire history of Western civilization, which has always held to the view that divine law trumps human laws, and that unjust laws, laws which contradict the law of God, are no law at all. The submission of the other branches of government and of the states and even of the people is nothing but rank state worship. It is the idolatry of our day, and it is a stench in the nostrils of God. And it is idolatry. It is like a worship. They call their lie a doctrine. If you go there to Washington, D.C., when they release their opinions, people stand in awe, and all the cameras by the score gather to hear what the oracle has to say. They have their own liturgy. Their liturgy is, the Supreme Court has ruled, the federal courts have ruled, all I can do is obey. It's their liturgy. They have a whole host of priests. They're called lawyers. And they have a vested interest to keep that lie living and to keep their tyrant on the throne. Yet the truth is, the Supreme Court is not above divine law. They are not above God. They are not the voice of God. They are not God. Their opinions and interpretations are not the supreme law of the land. All men and all governments of men are accountable to God's law. Divine law always trumps human ones. God's law declares you shall not murder. His created order has declared that a man joins a woman only in marriage. The Supreme Court has contradicted his law and his created order and therefore should not be obeyed by the state magistrates. Amen. The lesser magistrates, state, county, and local government officials demonstrate idolatry by paying homage to this false god through their oft-repeated slogan, "The Supreme Court has ruled, all I can do is obey." It's insane. The second bodyguard is political expediency. The other branches of government find this, the idea that the Supreme Court is the final arbiter to whose opinions they must submit as the law of the land, is a useful tool that benefits them. They can tell their constituents they are opposed to something, but then sing the common song, "But the Supreme Court has ruled, so all we can do is obey." The politicians love it because they can express their opposition to something while not opposing to something. And because the people believe the fiction, they get away with it. This is the ploy used by politicians to take good people who see the evil and want it stopped and neutralize them. The third great bodyguard is cowardice. We are a nation of cowards. If Paul Revere rode through today and declared that the British were coming, the only response you'd hear from these hills is, "Quick, put up your gun-free zone signs and run to your safe space." That's how weak and cowardly are. And yet the Bible makes clear that cowards will have their place in the lake of fire. Men need to fear God, not man. Amen. The Supreme Court has openly impugned the law and word of God. They are spitting in the face of Christ. The court should not be obeyed. These three bodyguards, idolatry, political expediency, and cowardice, protect the tyrant in our day. They are the reasons the lesser magistrates don't interpose. As is the case with all human institutions that have declared ultimate authority and demanded unlimited submission, SCOTUS must be defied. Nothing less will do. The court must be reminded that their authority has limits. The court must be reminded that their authority has limits. The court must be reminded that their authority has limits, and the interposition of the lesser magistrates reminds them of that important fact. These are the kinds of magistrates America is in need of. Those who eschew cowardice, abhor political expediency, and despise idolatry, who want to live faithfully, godly, and uprightly before the Lord himself. And we as his people must be broken before the Lord. The evil made in our land by the governments of men should grieve us. We should be bothered by it, not come up with spiritual sounding slogans to accommodate ourselves to it. The psalmist had something to say to the judges, and their need is to acknowledge the ultimate authority, God himself.